Do you feel like maybe ignorance is bliss has been useful for you, not experiencing another company and just doing it right from the get-go?
Oh yeah, being naive was probably one of my biggest strengths in starting a business, because if I knew how challenging it would be and how little I knew when I started Beutini at 22, I definitely would not have started it.
Hi, I'm Jason Harris, and you're listening to Soul and Science. Fast forward your marketing mind in about 20 minutes. Today on the show, I'm talking with the founder and CEO of Beia Beauty, a premium skincare brand that brings skincare and sexual wellness together in a new and luxurious way. Before founding Beia, Brittany's New York City-based bridal beauty experience was featured in People Magazine, The New York Times, The Knot, Brides, and more. In today's episode, you'll learn about the value of surrounding yourself with a great support team of like-minded individuals. You'll hear about the way living authentically draws more of the people and opportunities that align with your values and goals. And you'll discover a kind of surprising power that comes from an unlikely place, naivety. All right, let's dive in and fast forward our marketing minds. All right, so what is your origin story? You went to school, you were always into beauty, you decided you wanted to be an entrepreneur. How did it all start?
Yeah, I actually started before college, before high school, actually in second grade. My dad every so often would ask me what I wanted to do when I got older. And that morning—
That's pretty hard. That's a tough question for a second grader.
I know, but I'd say like ballerina, a baker, maybe an astronaut. Like it always changed. But that one day in second grade, I was like, you know what, Dad? I love beauty. And so he suggested one day I work for like an Estee Lauder or Clinique. And I was like, no, I'm going to have my own beauty company. And that day I actually wrote in my journal that I would one day have a beauty company. And basically since then, put some blinders on and try to figure out how I could make that happen.
What did you study in school?
So I went to college for entrepreneurship. So I went to Babson College, which is a small business school outside of Boston that was known for entrepreneurship. So knowing that I wanted to have this beauty business, it felt like the right fit.
Did you work for other companies before starting something or no?
So I interned for a big beauty conglomerate this summer in between junior and senior year, and they actually offered me a full-time role upon graduation a few weeks before I started my senior year of college. And so I initially accepted, and I was so excited. And then very quickly, my gut was telling me that this was just like the wrong path. I always said, again, since second grade, I would have my own business. And so I ended up being able to raise some money and build out the concept for my first company, Beutini. So I didn't have to go corporate, but it was pretty close.
Do you feel like ignorance is bliss has been useful for you, not experiencing another company and just doing it right from the get-go? Or do you think it would have been helpful to work for other companies first?
Oh yeah, being naive was probably one of my biggest strengths in starting a business, because if I knew how challenging it would be and how little I knew when I started Beutini at 22, I definitely would not have started it. I always say that if you have this dying idea, like this idea for this amazing business, and you can't sleep at night because you're dreaming about this idea, and you can't just get out of your head, then that's a signal that maybe it is time for you to go out and build this company. But there's so many people who say, one day I want to have my own thing. I don't know exactly what that is. And if that's you and you're in that boat, I think it's very valuable to go out and get different experiences at other companies, understand their processes, understand how they build their business to then take those learnings to start your own. I will say I did work part-time at Sony Music Entertainment as like an assistant part-time for like 7 months as I was building Beutini. And I will say, even though that was a completely different industry, I learned a lot about their processes. I watched my boss's boss like lead the team. And it also pushed me to figure out my business a little bit quicker, knowing that I wanted to stop working at this other company. So I do think there's a lot of benefits of working somewhere else first.
At what point did you start Beia from Butini?
So about 2 years into Butini, I realized the way to scale a service-based company, when you think about a dry bar or a glam squad, is generally there's many different locations scattered throughout the country, and they really focus on volume. And for me, I really cared about the experience that we were providing our clients. And I, from a personal perspective, imagine what life would look like when I'm in my 40s with a few kids. Like, did I care? Did I want to worry about stylists in a different state waking up at 4 a.m. to make sure they're at a different wedding? No. And so I always knew product was the end goal. And very quickly I was like, you know what? This is my like stepping stone, and really created Butini as my market research platform, because at 22, I didn't know where the white space was in the beauty world. And it's a very congested industry as it is. So I was like, if I don't know where I need to go for product, let me build a service-based business first and work with women and have these intimate conversations with them. And based on that market research, I one day will figure out what that white space is. And what happened was we ended up falling into weddings, kind of just by accident, because I had a lot of friends getting married, asking for recommendations for hair and makeup because they couldn't find a brand that aligned with their like vision for beauty. And so during a wedding trial, which happens before a wedding, a bride will generally come in, maybe with her mom or maid of honor, and try out hair and makeup looks. And it generally lasts about 2 hours. And planning a wedding is very stressful, very emotional. And so I would get some really interesting insights from our brides, talking anything about like, you know, their in-laws to prenups to the wedding night expectations, etc. And so during those conversations, that's when a lot of women would be like, hey, like instead of asking about their blush, they'd be like, listen, I have these blemishes all over my breasts. I have a low cut dress. What do I do? Or like, I sweat really easily. Is this going to hold? Or like, when I sweat, I smell. So what happens on my wedding night, let alone when I'm hugging my guest? And so I was like, wait, I also feel self-conscious when I'm stinky and smelly after dancing on a Friday night and trying to go home with someone, when I'm also thinking about that night. It might not be a wedding night, but still it's all about like intimacy. And so kind of those two scenarios gave me this idea of, wait a minute, a lot of 80% of women have this insecurity of body image, whether it's sweat, smells, body blemishes, etc., that actually affect their confidence in the bedroom and beyond. So how can I create this beauty brand that pairs this skincare meets sexual wellness category to provide solutions for these intimate concerns so that women can get the pleasure they deserve?
You position it as, you know, premium skincare with bedroom benefits. Is the bedroom benefits like, is that the unique part?
Yeah, well, when you think about like intimacy products, you're generally thinking about the family planning aisle of a CVS, where it's like these neon bottles of lube with ingredients that you can't even pronounce, and you're hiding them in the back of your sock drawer, right? Like that's when we think about like sex products, that's kind of the first thought that comes into mind. Or you're thinking about going into this sex shop, hoping that you don't know anyone and you don't spot anyone watching you in and out of that store. And so there's so much shame and guilt and that's associated with this category. And so for me, I was like, there has to be a way, because this is how we get those products. Yet when we think about how every single person got to this world, it's through sex, right? So it's like, why is it so cringe for us to talk about it when it's really a very natural part of everyone's routine? And so my approach was, while a lot of brands focus on here's some toys, here's some lube, go have fun, I really take it a step back and realize that if, especially women, if they enter the bedroom not feeling confident in their own skin, knowing that pleasure is like 99% mental, to orgasm, to have pleasure, that means we need to address those problems that are being stuck in their head during intimacy. And so I think we just positioned ourselves in a more elevated way where you're displaying it on top of your nightstand, not in the back of your sock drawer,
Right.
and just took this more like 360 beauty approach to intimacy.
Like, how do you sell it into, say, retailers? You're like, we're covering this new niche.
Yeah.
It isn't. Yeah.
But the nice thing for them is, yes, sexual wellness is all the rage in the beauty industry right now. You have Target, you have Sephora, you have Walmart, you have all these big retailers wanting to build out this category. But like, they also need to learn how to communicate this category to their customers in a way that's still on brand for them. And so for us, we are double merchandise as both skincare and sexual wellness. So it helps them like ease into this category with their customers, which is a huge benefit for them as well as us.
How do you think about, okay, now I have this concept, I need to start a business. What are like the first steps you do when you start a business in this space?
I think the first step, which can be controversial, is once you have a business idea or like concept for product, is having conversations with people who would be in this target demographic and just share your thoughts with them. Like people who you, of course, feel safe with and wouldn't maybe run off and take your idea. But I think sharing your idea is the best way to really refine your business model before you start executing on those products. Because once you place that order for those glass bottles with your logo on it, you can't go back and change it. So I think the first part is absorbing as much information as you can in order to set yourself up and your products up for the most success. Then also, like, I think it just like, what does your brand, what do you want your brand to represent? So I think a lot of pen to paper on like ideas, what colors resonate with you? Are there any names that come to you? What are these products? So I think just like, for me, I'm such a visual person that I spend a lot of time just like doodling on big poster boards on like what comes to mind with this business that I want to build. Because before going into product, it's almost like you got to set your foundation for a business first. And if you don't know what that business looks like or what it stands for or what it feels like or looks like, it's very hard to then make an extension of the business like your products, because there will probably be a big disconnect.
That's awesome. How do you think about building your personal brand and building the Beia brand and how those coexist together?
Yeah, I think one of the big parts of starting a business is how forward facing as a founder you want to be. Because there's so many successful businesses that don't need a founder that has their own personal brand or whatnot. But in today's world, if a founder does something really shady or whatever else, like your reputation as a person and as the founder very much correlates to the business. And so I personally think that if I wanted to educate people more in this like sexual wellness category, I've always loved beauty, but I felt like it was really important to work with the editor to like build out a newsletter, but also be like showing my my confidence in the bedroom and beyond, and like talking through just like my journey as an entrepreneur. Because what I learned in college when I was raising money for my first company was that people love to be a part of your journey, right? People don't know what they don't see and what they don't read and what you don't tell them. And so by me updating people who have helped me along the way, being like, hey, great news, we just found a contract manufacturer or planning on launching this product. If you want to try out some samples, I'd love to send you some, right? Like people love to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And I think having a personal brand allows you to bring so many people along for the journey. So that way, when you are facing a challenge or whatnot, like you never know who might reach out. And I think that's like my favorite part of building a personal brand. And also, there is, of course, I'm not Beia, Beia is not me, but it's an extension of me, right? So it just provides further opportunity to connect with future customers, share what's going on with the business, and also people can get to know the founder and the mission and the inspiration that went into the brand that you spent so much time building.
Well, I was able to check out the products, and I think they're really great. And I love the dual purpose of them. Which one like pops off that like drives the business?
So definitely our body and intimacy serum. So what we found when I was launching Beia was I didn't want to be this like a full-on sex brand because we would have alienated so many of our customers. We found from our market research with our clients was that they wanted to feel comfortable in the environment that they're purchasing our products. They needed to ease into a brand that carries sexual wellness products, and they wanted to know the quality of ingredients and the formulations before they're putting something in their intimate areas. And so we eased into the sexual wellness full-on products like a lubricant by first starting with a mist that gives you the morning afterglow, and then wipes that were dual purpose for post gym, but you could also use pre and post sex. And then the body and intimacy serum was kind of like, okay, we've eased people into what we're doing. Here we are.
Are people confused because it doesn't, it doesn't say
lube.
like it doesn't say lube. It says body and intimacy serum. Obviously, it's like a elevated product and an elevated way to say sex lube. But customers get confused, or is it super clear?
Well, one of the main reasons on why we decided to say intimacy serum was when we were thinking about our marketing efforts, we were thinking about Meta and TikTok and Amazon and understanding their guardrails on what products, what copy gets flagged from them internally. And we knew that if we said lubricant, Meta specifically, like sex and lubricant were ones that were really in the gray areas.
Oh, that's genius. So it's elevated comms, but it also is very tactical in how you need to advertise it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where it's like you want to pick the path with least resistance. And I knew that maybe it is a less known word, intimacy serum, than say a personal lubricant. But if it allows me to find creative ways to get in front of more people by changing the name, that's what my decision was. And as this category grows further and further, that word intimacy serum is really trending to be a popular term over personal lubricant.
Do you look through like the data and the results and, sales you got from this influencer versus retail? Do you look at all that, or do you just sort of know in your gut? Are you guided more by your head or your heart when you are thinking about what to do next?
So the overall vision and strategies, like my vision and long-term plan for Beia, I would say solely comes from my heart and my soul, right? Like that's where my passion, my dreams, like that's what the vision is. But how we get there, I do think we do look at our weekly sales numbers. We look at like the upticks on our websites. We look at our conversion rates. We look at our average order value. So all those data points help us guide us on where to spend more money, what kind of priorities that we need to do or focus on. But ultimately, I think that the vision on the brand comes from the heart.
Do you think about Beia as having a higher purpose?
Since I developed Utini, I always said that I loved empowering other women, and I wanted to empower women to feel confident and comfortable in their own skin. So whether that was doing beauty services and doing hair and makeup and showing how beautiful they are, because I do think confidence is that inner to outer, but also that outer to inner energy and confidence. And then with Beia, it's the same thing as knowing that I want you to feel your most confident self in that bedroom and beyond, knowing it's going to translate. And how we do that is a little bit differently than how we do with Beia or Beautini and our beauty services. But that's like my overall mission is like, how do we have more women feel confident and comfortable in their own skin? Because when you feel confident, that's when you can take over the world and really go after your dreams, your goals, your self-worth skyrockets, and you know what you're worth. And I think there's so many beautiful things that come from when you're feeling confident. And I think there's a lot of ways you can get to that. And so both businesses strive to do that.
I love that. What is on your worry list that you, we're supposed to get 8 hours plus of sleep. What prevents you from getting your beauty rest?
I'd say new ideas. So I'm always thinking of how can we, like, what's going to move Beia forward? What can we change to evolve Butini more? And so ideas definitely keep me up at night. I'd say I'd say for Beia, just understanding like budget allocation, especially because, like the investment in products upfront is a lot higher than doing a service business, right? You have to be spending lots of money on bottles and components before you even spend on the formula to fill them. And so you're taking a lot of risk, and that scares me. And the other piece is making sure I'm supporting my team as much as I can. Like, reality, I run both businesses right now, and sometimes I can't give them both my all. Like, never can you, right? So you're always picking and choosing. And I just worry that I want to make sure my team feels supported and that they're happy in their roles, and I'm doing everything that I can as their leader.
What is an unpopular but important decision that you've had to make since running Beia?
So I'd say two things exactly. One of them is having two businesses. So many people said you either need to sell Butini, like hand it off. You can't do both, right? And how I see it is, because I have Butini, I'm able to self-fund Beia. And so when I think about my time spent as a leader, the amount of time I would have to spend on fundraising and managing investors, et cetera, is really the time that I put into Butini. And so that's interesting. And the second piece I'd say is pretty early on, like when I was starting Butini, I had some advisors who were very focused on me working 24/7, didn't love me to have a real social life, and that's fine. And I grew, but there got to a point where I wasn't super happy. And so when it came to me building Beia and now fully owning both of my businesses, I realize as I get older that like life is short, and people become entrepreneurs because they are so passionate about what they do and they want to build this life that they've always dreamed of and all this flexibility. But so many times, like, you work for your business, you don't allow your business to work for you. And so that's something that I've mindfully in the last year or so have tried to shift, is knowing that like if I take a trip for a week once a year, I can fully decompress knowing that I've worked so hard all year round to let my team do the work. And so I just think finding balance is always a little bit controversial, because sometimes you're like, well, does she really work?
You got to be taking more than a week off a year.
No, I mean for like that's in a well, this year I'm doing 2 weeks consecutively.
No, I'm doing 2 weeks tomorrow.
Wait, I love that. Tomorrow. I'm doing it next Friday, and it's amazing. I can't wait. Yeah. But I think with the hustle culture, and especially at least in my experience, if you have investors, like, it's very hard to build the boundaries of like what's going to personally make you happy when you have people's priorities and you also wanting to make a business successful. But I do think that when you're happy in your personal life and you take care of yourself, that only makes your business more successful. But I do think that's a little bit controversial for people.
The entrepreneurial life is challenging and hard and can be lonely. So do you have role models that help you?
1,000%. Well, growing up, my grandpa is an entrepreneur, and he started that when he was 18 years old, and that was just a way of life, and that's how he supported his 5 kids, and that one of his kids is obviously my mom. And so just hearing what he did and how little money he had when he started and how successful he's become showed me that this was a career option, was to start a business. I always say that my parents have always been my biggest cheerleaders, but what they also did was, since I was like 2 years old, we would go to Disney multiple times a year. And people say sometimes I live in a fairy tale, but when they tell you to dream big and you can wish for anything that you want, and there's all these different initiatives or different sayings that Disney has. And I think that mindset, that perspective of just like thinking positively and like making your dreams a reality, like that really, really got to me at a very young age. And so I think that's a huge piece of it. My dad at one point in college, I was, graduating, starting Butini. And he's like, wait a minute, you're not going to have stability. Like, what's going to go here? What's going to happen here? And my mom was like, listen, like my dad was an entrepreneur and he figured it out. And so there was definitely some pushback when I started. But I think now that everyone's on board, which they did after a few months of me starting Butini, I think that my parents always give me perspective and are always finding ways to further support my dreams. And I think that's an incredible resource, and they're incredible role models to have. But additionally, I have so many different female founder friends, founder entrepreneur friends, and everyone goes through different challenges, different wins at different time. And so similar to my omni-channel approach, I think building a network and surrounding yourself with really great friends, really great coworkers or industry peers is a way where you can always feel supported by supporting like-minded people.
And do you have a favorite quote or mantra that guides you?
I'd say one that I love that's beauty oriented is beauty begins the moment that you decide to be yourself. And
I love that.
I love it too, because when I started Butini, I was 22 years old, working in the wedding and events industry that's very much prided on years of experience. So a lot of the top vendors were like much, much older than I was. And they, like, I almost felt like I had to put on this shield. Like, I never told people how old I was. I never said like the years I graduated, or I kind of like blurred the lines between internships, full-time roles, starting Butini, because I was like I knew, and it happened to me where once they found out how old I was, they didn't allow my business to speak for itself. They used that as a disadvantage. And as I got older, I'm now 31, but as I got older in my age, like more into the late 20s, I decided, you know what? This is who I am. I'm proud that I'm a young entrepreneur. I'm proud of the products, services that I've created. And if that doesn't work for someone, that's okay. And so whether that's like how I've built my business and who I network with, or even friends or peers, I feel like once you decide to be you and you're authentically you through and through, that's when you really get to know the right people, and people want to get to know you. And I just think that it's provided so much clarity and happiness when I've really embraced every piece of who I am, and knowing that the right opportunities, the right people will come into play because of that.
I love that. I always think about be yourself, everyone else is already taken.
I love that. Easier said than done.
It's true. How would you describe your business style in one word?
Collaborative. I love hearing everyone's opinion. Like, I love listening to opinions and ideas and refining opportunities based on what others think in addition to my own opinion.
That's great. Where can people find out more about you and more about Beia?
Beia Beauty on Instagram, and then it's beia.beauty on TikTok, or beiabeauty.com. And then I am Brittany.lo on Instagram, or reach out to us via our website.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. And this is great. And we can't wait for more people to discover the brand.
Thanks, Jason. This was awesome. I had so much fun.
Soul and Science is a Mekanism podcast produced by Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, Tyler Nielsen, Emma Swanson, and Lily Jablonski. The show is edited by Daniel Ferreira with theme music by Kyle Merritt. And I'm your host, Jason Harris.